Hey everybody, Scott Kelby here. Welcome to the Grid. Joined by my co-host, as always, Mr. R.C. Concepcion.
What's going on, everybody? How you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing good. And we have a special guest today.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have
Daniel
Daniel Gregory.
Yay!
Yay, me!
I made it all the way to Tampa.
Yay, me!
Yay, me. Can I tell you something? That gets my vote for the 2015 best opening line.
Yay, me!
Yay,
I love
me.
it.
When you watch from home, it's exciting to get down here. And I'm come from Seattle, and so it's been pouring rain.
Wait a minute. You watch the show?
I do.
We've never had anybody that watched the show.
Well, you're
the first.
It's recorded. I'm in your DVR +7, but.
Rough.
Hashtag roasted. Hey, lots of stuff. We're very excited to have Daniel here today. Our topic, we're going to be talking about sequencing in your portfolio, which means basically the order you put stuff in your portfolio is not random. It's actually very important.
Now, I'm going to kidnap your thing for a couple seconds here, right? Because I have not seen you all day. I want to know what you were doing in the room. You were doing in the room. You were working in the room.
Good
You were
stuff
doing some
today.
stuff.
I'm very proud of what I did today, and I'm not usually like that, but I'm very proud of two things I did today. I did a class on creating beautiful wedding albums in Lightroom.
Very essential. Very needed.
And I do teach how to use all the book module stuff, right? But it's really about the beauty. It's really, I really put an emphasis on the design. Like I give sample layouts, I show how to do layouts, why certain layouts work. I give design theory and stuff to help. So it is, of course, how to build it all. You have to know how to build it or you're just like, whoa. But I did spend a good chunk of it giving ideas, sharing my own favorite layouts and stuff on wedding. So that's one class. And then I did a whole class on how to actually build your audience on Instagram for photographers. So we had a grid just a couple weeks ago that was about why you should be on Instagram. I talked about a little tiny bit of that, but the rest of it was actually the nuts and bolts of it. Because I'm very late to the game on Instagram. I've been on it just, 2 months. And I'm adding between 1,500 and 2,000 people a week. This week it was 2,047 people in the last 7 days. And it's not from Twitter and it's not from Facebook because I'm getting jacked from those. I'm not getting, like if I go to Facebook and go, hey, follow me, I almost always get 100 people. So where are the other 15, 16, 1,700 coming from? That's what the class is about. Everything I've learned the last 10 weeks, and I've worked hard. I've researched, I've read everything I could, white papers, interviews, everything I could. I worked really hard to figure out what's going to work, and I've got a strategy that works, and you can do it too exactly the same way. Just recorded it today. It's not ready for... They got to edit it and stuff.
This is how I know that like it's a good class. Not that your classes suck, but it was just like
some of them suck.
No. But one of the reasons that I know that like the classes.
Supposed to be my friend.
I know. Pot kettle, yeah.
Oh wow!
Wow, cat sound.
You're supposed to be my friend.
I was going to give you qualifying medallion points too. Now I'm not sure.
No, but one of the things that I thought was cool about this is. There were a couple of things that you were working on. You were working on Lightroom and books and things like that. And you're like, oh, take a look at this. Oh, take a look at this. Oh, take a look at... And when you get excited about it, it's like, this should be a class. And you're like, you're right. And you took off.
It was funny. We just talked about this.
And it was the same thing with Instagram. I'm like, you need to tell people about it. And it's like, you're right.
2 weeks later, I got a class. So anyway.
I'm excited about that because I am late to Instagram. And as a fine art photographer, and a lot of my stuff still historical processing, wet plate, and that kind of stuff. And so I haven't figured out what to do with Instagram for me.
Well, I can tell you this. Can I tell you this? Because of what your class has done on KelbyOne, I'll give you a one-on-one for free. I'll teach you. I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Yeah. So you're trying to figure out how that's gonna,
and it's not even like how it can help my career or introduce me, but how can I really share my work in a way that resonates and helps get out there. And I'm slow to that process. So to have somebody who can say, hey, I found something, this works, try this out, that's to me really, really cool. Because it is so hard with so much noise out there to really figure out like what to actually do to get started.
I got a thing. It's not just one thing, it's a bunch of things.
So we're gonna talk about those things. So
Where's Brad?
Brad is actually, I think, on vacation.
That's right. Stinking Brad is on vacation. So monitoring your comments today is Pistol Pete. He's on the floor. It's an odd place for Pete.
Sitting on the
Pete
floor.
Collins is stepping in for Brad today. He's not we don't have a microphone. We don't have a. He's just.
He doesn't get a light. He doesn't get
a light.
He doesn't get a chair.
On the floor.
The concrete floor.
But he is monitoring your comments. Hey, I just want to mention. We just saw a comment here. Craig McCormick.
Craig McCormick.
Craig McCormick? Oh,
Craig
well, there you go.
McCormick, yeah.
Craig McCormick says, because I just mentioned Daniel's class. Daniel's class was on one hand super inspirational, on the other made me want to throw out everything I've ever done and start over. That's a great class. You know what it does? It makes you rethink.
I wish
okay.
there were people that were talking about that class, the visual literacy thing, and this is just completely like Daniel's creation that talked about it. I can't tell you how many people have emailed that have gone, change my life, change how I see things,
change my underwear.
It's changed everything. Just soiled myself. Gotta get a new set.
I did not have to go that far, but sure, okay.
But it was one of those things. So personally, for all of the people that have sent those comments in, and for all of the people that have commented me, and thank you for that, because I think it's a part of a conversation that needs to happen. So I thought credit is well deserved.
So honored and touched that people would watch it, because it is something that I have a lot of passion about, is helping people get their work better, and really seeing and learning in my own way that the more I could talk about my work and the more I could help express what wasn't working in my work, and even knowing what question to ask. Because I think that's one of the things, like when I first met you, that, oh, I have this problem, can you help me with this?
Right.
But sometimes it's like, I don't even know what the problem is and I don't know where to start.
Right.
And when I teach up in Seattle, that's more and more what I was seeing from people, is just, I don't even know what question to ask. And then when I would tell them, and I was thinking about a couple weeks ago on the grid, you talked about, you see a photo during the competitions and everybody was like, oh, that's the one.
Right.
And so in the literacy world, there's a guy named Roland Barthes who wrote a very philosophical book, but he called that punctum, which is there's a point of pressure when the photograph becomes something more than the photograph, and you linger with it and you stick with it, and it's different for everybody, but great photographs elevate themselves up like that. And what I realized was I had photographs like in my own world, but I couldn't figure out why. And so it was, how do we get dialogue so we can start to elevate those meetings, so we can all create work that elevates up? Because as photography gets better, as we all take better pictures, we all get better. We all see the world in a better way. So I'm really glad that resonated with people, because it came out of my own experience. So I'm really touched.
I could listen to you talk about anything. Yeah.
It's my sultry evening radio voice.
It's something. It's good though. I'm sucked in. I'm all in.
Because usually it's helium sounding. So.
Now, before we get into all that, so we want to talk about
hands
that.
up.
We want to hands up. We want to talk
hands.
we want to talk about portfolio. We want to talk about the power.
I got a wild story
and all that stuff. I want to hear about the copyright story.
Well, don't you got a thing?
I do want to talk about this thing though first. All right, guys, this is all part of KelbyOne. If you want classes that change your life on Lightroom, on literacy, on art and passion, Pete, myself, all of this stuff is done on KelbyOne. Guys, we want you to become members. I am blatantly telling you, this will be the best money that you spend all year. This is what you do. Go to KelbyOne.com. I want you to go over to 7-day deals.
7-day deals. Yeah.
Inside of there, you're going to get some great deals on becoming a member. These are things, we take our education and what we do very seriously, and we want to be the people that give you that education. This is the website for you to do that. Make sure that you go to 7-day deals at KelbyOne.com. You're going to be very, very glad you did. Now that I got that out of the way, tell us your copyright story.
I got a wild story. Okay, now I want to make sure I'm connected to the. All right. So can we bring up my screen for just a second? All right. So this is, you may recognize this book, and I'm not trying to like promote it or anything, but by the way, this is my book. Anyway, no, but it is a little bit about my book. So I get an email 2 days ago, and it is from an attorney in New York City. And he says, I am representing the model, that is the cover model for that book, your Lightroom CC book for digital photographers. And you do not have a model release from her or her permission to use that photo. And I'm representing her, and I think we need to talk. And I go, what do I do? Look at that camera? Yep. I'm thinking, what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He says, we need to talk. Dun, dun, dun. And I look at the picture, and those of you who have seen the tour that I'm on, right, the Shoot Like a Pro tour, would recognize this model. She had done a number of things like videos and stuff for the tour, and she's local here. And he's representing a model from New York City. And he says the model's name. And I'm thinking, I've never shot that model. So I send Brad a note, and I say, Brad, he's mentioning this model's name. Well, I'm not going to mention the model's name. And I said, do we ever shoot this model? And Brad writes back and says, that doesn't even ring a little bell. I'm like, so I wrote back to the attorney, and I sent that cover that I just showed you. I sent that cover shot. and I said, okay, here's the cover. This is a local model. It's someone I've worked with a number of times, and it's not the person that you say it is. And I said, so here's the cover shot, and I have a model release, because we always have a model release. Have a model release. It's fully released. And so I write back to him, and he comes back and goes, nope, that's this model I represent. Can you please send me the unretouched photo, the original unretouched, and the model's full name? Now, I have to tell you, this is all via email, and I don't usually never mention a model's last name, because I don't want them to get weirdo stalkers or anything, right? Just because you just never know, there's people out there. So I'm very hesitant. I don't really mind sending him the unretouched image, because honestly, I can tell you exactly what I do. You want to pull it back up? I can tell you exactly what I did in Photoshop. You see the highlights in the fur? I did that. I added highlights in her hair. I removed a few minor blemishes, and I made her eyes look awesome. That's pretty much what I did. If I sent the untouched original, in fact, I can probably find it for you. It's very much like that. Added contrast. It was a 5-minute retouch. There was not much to do, thankfully. It was pretty just straight ahead, easy lighting, easy job. So he writes back and says, nope, that's her. So what I have to think that he's thinking is maybe I faked it or something. So Brad finds the model's website that he mentions. And I looked at her and I went,
she's close.
Yeah, there's a similarity. So what I'm thinking is that model thinks I took her face and copied it and stuck it over this photo. And the nose was dead on. The nose was dead on. It was very, very close. But then I realized, wait, can we see my computer? I have the behind the scenes photo of me taking the cover shot. So I did not give him the model's name. I gave him the model's first name. And I said, I'm not going to send the unretouched photo, but I have something better. Here is a photo of me taking that shot. And I sent this. And you know what I got back from the attorney?
Sorry?
Yeah, the model relented. It's not her. Sorry to have bothered you. I was, what? Because I'm trying to think, what are the possible scenarios? Is that model use a different name, or what? It was very that was really just that was just so random. It was just but think about this, Daniel. A woman looked at a picture of some other woman and said, that's me.
Maybe it's her
And then went to an attorney and said, this is me. And it wasn't her.
Maybe it was her twin sister, long lost twin sister.
I don't know.
But could you imagine how convincing that is me?
And even when I came back and showed the cover and said, no, this is a model I work with locally, she said, nope, that's me. That'd be like, RC, you looking at this picture, oh, that's me.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
It's kind of weird.
I thought you were going to go with the fact that he was going to send you an email back and go, I am the Nigerian prince.
No, I love those when I get those. Do you know what I used to do? You get those ones that say, I found $6 million, and if I can transfer it to your account, you can keep 4 of it or whatever, every time I used to get this years ago, I don't get them anymore, I miss them. I used to get those on a regular basis. I would strictly forward them to Terry White, and I would put in the subject line, just hit the jackpot. Retiring on Thursday. I would always put a line that meant okay, this is legit. Anyway, but that was my wild story. I was I've just never had that happen before. No, I'm representing this model and that, and you sent her. No, I know who this is. She's local. Nope. I didn't know what to do. I was just
I'm looking for my name.
I have learned to always take a behind the scenes shot of every shoot now.
Well, they're great to have anyway, if you remember. What kind of lighting did I do on that?
But I never sent them to my lawyer.
Yeah. Well, then my next thing was I was going to have to get my lawyer involved. I was going I'm going to have to turn this over to my lawyer. But I was just, was that wild?
That is
crazy.
That is wild. I did not know that. Hey, your questions are already coming in, but we haven't even started the class. So let's take a short break, shall we?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to turn things over to Daniel, because the show's really not about me and RC, because I think we've said everything we can possibly say.
I'm pretty much tapped out.
Did I tell you that a lawyer contacted me? That was wild.
And we're out.
That is wild. Weird stuff. We'll be right back. A giant yak. Oh, please go to commercial. There we go.
I'm Kaylee Greer. In this class, you're gonna learn how to get the best photos possible out of your dog, how to work with your dog and keep him engaged and interested, how to capture action shots of your dog flying at about a gazillion miles an hour. We're gonna take a trip to the shelter to learn how to work with shelter dogs and give them a second chance through photography. Come check out my new class on KelbyOne.com.
Hey everybody, RC here. This holiday season, you can go to the mall and take the same mall picture that you have with Santa, so you can use your photography and Photoshop experience to make something great. We're going to teach you how to be able to use a regular playground, one light. We're going to talk about compositing kids onto a beautiful holiday image. You have all the gear, you have all the knowledge. We're going to show you how to do that right here on KelbyOne.
Hey.
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 Hi.
Hey, what's up?
What's going on? Welcome back, everybody. RC here on the grid. I'm still looking for my Nigerian Prince email because there wasn't that many emails. Like, it died down.
Yeah.
And I knew that it was that.
Well, once the prince got that money, you know.
You have to dig for the Nigerian Prince part because it's like something, something, something. And I know what they are because they use the word barrister. And it's the only time that's ever used. It's like blah, 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 represent the barrister of something. And I'm like, it's the Nigerian Prince.
No, you just admitted you watched Downton Abbey.
They do that there too?
Well, barristers, that's a very common word. That means lawyer. It just means attorney. And in the UK, they
I know, but you don't see it in email. I'm saying like.
You're not getting the right kind of emails then.
I don't get Downton Abbey emails.
Yeah, you need UK email.
Not Downtown Abbey. Okay.
All right.
It's not Downtown Abbey.
Is it Downton?
Downton Abbey.
Downton?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't watch TV.
You're so British. Okay. All right.
Downton.
All right.
Abbey.
So RC, you're going to start with your little story here to into Daniel land.
Yeah. So so we're bringing Daniel on. A lot of this started. So Daniel's a friend. I've known Daniel for many years, and we met on workshops and we talked about these kinds of things. And basically, he's been kind of like my advisor on things that I've tried to do photographically speaking. And over the last couple of years through Photoshops, we get together and we kind of have like this counseling session where I talk about my work and where I want to go and how I do things. And he kind of points me in specific directions and tells me what to focus on and kind of gives you things to challenge about. And as we're talking, there's a crew of us that we're talking in Vegas, and we're sitting at a sushi bar, and we're sitting there talking about this, and Mia's there, and all these people are there, and we're talking about.
Is it the one in Mandalay Bay?
No, it's out. You have to go out. Like we piled like 9 people in a car, and
really?
we go. Yeah, it's really good. I gotta show you where it is. But so we're talking about this, and so we're like, Daniel, what do you think? And he's like, this is what happens. This is what I tell my students. This is what I tell this, and we're doing this, and everybody at the table's like this. Like just hanging on every word. And we're like, you need to do this as a class. And so we got Mia together with Daniel, and they were there, and they were just like, all right, well, you guys got to get together and just kind of do this as a class where you just kind of talk and have this be something that we want to do at KelbyOne, where we talk to people more about the whys and the intentions, kind of this highbrow stuff.
The other level of photography.
So we did that, and we were in Seattle, and I was there separately because we were going to go hang out and do these wet plate things, and we're doing stuff, and we're having coffee, and he's like, you know what, why don't you talk about your work? Talk about the struggles that you're having. So I have this big confession thing that we do, but it illustrates how to be able to get around that, and that's kind of one part of the conversation. The second part of this is you were talking about portfolios and culling and getting things together to present a really strong foot forward. And I don't want to kind of overstep too much, but that's kind of like the next part of the process with this, or?
I got a lot of questions on this too. A lot of people, that's one of the, when you talk about portfolios, once people say, okay, I'm going to make a portfolio, the very next question is what goes in what order and how do you put it together? It's like, everybody's at just a dead stop.
Yeah, and it's, to me, it is probably, once you get the base technical skills down and you can create a good photograph, this becomes one of the most difficult pieces, because a really great, strong photograph that stands on its own, if it's put next to a weak photograph, the weak photograph brings down the quality of the good one.
Yeah, it does.
And then the story changes too. So as we move from one image to another image, all of that changes. And learning how to, that sequencing, culling, editing process to me is absolutely one of the most difficult pieces, but it's the skill that separates great photographers. because they're able to put forward their best work in a meaningful storytelling way. And it's a skill that can be learned. Some people do it more intrinsically. Some people, it's more organic. Some people have to talk about it. But it is something that everybody can learn as they practice and work through it.
Okay,
Which is really kind of cool.
And now, so talk to us. So probably one of the first portions of this process would probably be the topic of kind of culling.
Yeah.
And talking about culling and how it works.
Yep.
So just layman's terms.
Yep.
Culling, you mean like getting down to the
Selecting
right
down.
images?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd have a take of pictures, and then not everything that you shoot would probably be in, like, you shoot a lot of pictures. How much of those pictures go into your actual portfolio?
This is terrible. Well, I'll give you an example. So we're almost at the end of the football season, right? What is this, week
14?
12, 13?
It was close.
Yeah, we're way into it. I mean, we have like
3 games left.
3 games left. So we're
Before the World
technically
Series.
week 13, okay, or something. I haven't shot every week. I've missed a few weeks because the Bucks have been on the road and I haven't been able to shoot out of town games and blah, blah, blah. Long story. But I don't have a single image this entire season. I've taken probably 15, 16,000 images that goes in my portfolio. Not a single image yet that I would go. Something in here has to come out so that can come in. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not having a great season. Because I haven't been shooting every week, I've had it until just the last couple of weeks, I haven't found my groove. I've had 3 games where I was in the groove, and all the rest of the games, it was just like I was my first game of the season. Because I would shoot a week, and the Bucks have been on the road for 2 weeks, then I'm on the road, and they come back, and I get 1 game, and then I'm gone again. It's been really tough. I think I've shot maybe 8 games, okay? Or wait, well, maybe we're in work 13. Yeah, I'm going to say I shot 8 games. Well, that's 16,000 photos plus, maybe 18,000 photos.
And of which?
0 for my portfolio.
Yeah.
Now, I've gotten like sports images of the day. This week I had 2 sports images of the day. Last week I had 2 images from the wire service I shoot for. Sports images of the day.
But does it make your portfolio?
No.
Yeah. Well, it's because
Maybe one.
well, and it's the elevation of that moment you described, where this is an photo. It does something to me that elevates it. And good photographs serve a great purpose. You find amazing photographs in magazines, you find them on websites, you find them everywhere, but they don't necessarily elevate themselves up. And what comes with experience and what comes with shooting sports for years is you've started to realize, like, wow, that's a great shot. Yeah, it's the photo of the week. People love it. They respond to it. But for you, it just doesn't move it up the scale. And somebody asked, Ansel Adams said a number of years ago, like, if you had one truly great photo a year for your entire life, you're the most prolific photographer in history, because great photos survive over time.
Yeah.
And so that's the goal, is to get, which where you're getting that 1, 2 photos. And to your point, the biggest problem I see in portfolio work is people show up and they put 15 photos in front of me and they're like, okay, I need to get this down to 10. And I'm like, great. Flick, 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 flick. There's 5 out. Now you have 10 mediocre photos. Because you only gave me 15 to choose from. You need a lot of work. And the biggest piece I see early on in people's careers, you're not shooting enough. You got to go shoot more. You got to shoot more. You got to create more. Because in that experimentation and in that learning is where you start to get good photographs. And so when you've got hundreds and thousands of photographs, you can start to really see what works and what doesn't work and start to pull out things that are really great.
Right.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because this happens to me. So we see our own portfolio images again and again and again, and I get sick of them. And so sometimes, because I've seen them so many times, that I really liked them when I took it. I really thought this image is better than the weakest image in my portfolio. Because the way I do it is I try to keep like 24 images.
Yeah.
And something better has to come in, and then the worst one goes out.
Yeah.
And hopefully that keeps elevating the quality of it over time. But I look at them and I'm like, I'm so sick of them. And other people get sick of my images too, a lot. But what happens is sometimes I'll show somebody a new image and I go, what do you think of this one? They're like, oh my God, that's got to go in your portfolio. But I think sometimes it's because they haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
Not because it's better than what's there. How do you get around that?
For me personally, I like to judge my work after memory has faded and after the initial reaction has faded.
I hear that a lot. That you should wait.
Yeah, and part of that is the photograph is an object, whether it's on the screen or it's a print. It contains no memory. It is a snap of time that happened in a moment. But when you're at the game, even as engaged as you are in the work, you remember the sights, the smells, what's going on, the photographer's next to you, you're talking about the play.
Yeah.
The photograph doesn't know any of that. Well, the person who looks at that photograph is like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. You know, in a football game, that's really a moment of action. And well, they're engaged in that moment as well. And so as time moves for you, then it's like, well, wait a minute. As I look at that photograph now, I can judge that to be a really good photograph because I don't necessarily remember what game it was, where I was. I'm now judging it on the merits of the quality within the image.
He's right. You know why? Well, you're right for a whole bunch of reasons, but that's funny that you say that because at the end of the year, at the end of my season, I go back and I put together on exposure. Have you ever heard of exposure? I go to exposure and I put best of the season. And I always look back at my season much better than I did as I was doing the season. Like, well, I've had time. I shot some of those things 4 months ago, and I look at them through different eyes now.
Exactly.
Wow, that's really interesting that you say that. I'm really just like, yeah, I need to put, you know what it is? I think maybe when I'm because I'm not adding a bunch of images to my port, when I get one, I'm like, ooh, great, I got to put it up there, and it's up there the next day. Maybe I need to just kind of marinate, let it wait, and just kind of let that excitement of I took a good shot. Because, like, I remember the shot that got the photo of the day for the wire service. It was the fourth quarter. The game was basically over. Who were we playing this week? I forgot. Oh God, not the Falcons, the Saints. They were running out the clock, and I'm sitting there. Do you remember our old cameraman Eddie Lynn? Eddie, remember Eddie?
Yeah, I remember Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie's a Bucks Bucks cameraman. And I'm just chatting with Eddie on the sideline. Hey Eddie, what's going on? Blah 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 blah. And they're doing the play, and it's game's over. I go click click click, and I went, son of a gun, it was a crappy play and I got a good shot. It was a crap play. It was just like, I'll run him out. You don't let him go out of bounds. Let the clock run. I think he lost a yard. The running back lost a yard. But I happened to catch it where the guy, he went up in the air and they're hitting. There's a contact and it's a pretty cool shot. I'll see if I can find it for you. But anyway, it was like, hey, it was a crappy. That's what I love about football, by the way. That never happens in baseball. You can shoot 6 games of baseball and not get anything. You can have a crappy play in the NFL and get a good shot. Anyway, back to the story. I was really excited about it then, and that would have been one that I went like, hey, and then once I got the picture of the day, then I was like, hey, okay. That would be one that normally I would go, hey, I'm gonna go put that in my portfolio right away.
Yeah.
Maybe I should wait
on it
and let it marinate, so I don't have the emotion in it, and I don't have Eddie Lynn in it. Because Eddie, he clouds your judgment.
Yeah.
It's a video guy. Come on.
Yeah.
No, he's actually a photographer too, which is why I like Eddie. He's actually a still photographer as well.
And I think the other piece around that is you have to think about what your portfolio is really for and who the audience for your portfolio is. Because that's one of the things that really varies how the images get put in. So as a fine art photographer, if I'm working on a body of work now about old growth forest, and so images that go into there, one, have to be about old growth forest. But then I also think about, well, what galleries would I go to with that? And what do those galleries show? And what kind of work would they be interested in seeing? If you picked up a magazine job or an online thing that was all about the Green Bay Packers, you're not going to submit the New York Giants. You're not going to submit the Minnesota Vikings.
No.
You're going to be like, maybe I should have some Green Bay Packers in those photos. So the portfolio that would get built there would be the best of your work with the Packers. Which goes back to kind of what we're doing with RC. You know, as we look at his work, we're trying to find common threads in his portfolios of, you know, you shoot HDR, you've shot cityscape, you've shot landscape. As we look at those portfolios that you've pulled together, what overarching themes can we then see across the portfolios to pull out? So what are we starting to understand as a photographer? Because going back to you want to put something in right away, you're getting better as a photographer and better as a sports photographer. You're seeing more and more, you're understanding more and more about the game. So that's where the other inclination is, you're better than you were. So this shot's better. I want to get that out in there.
But I wanted to, like, when you shoot for a year, you think, I should get something for my portfolio. And maybe when I do that thing at the end of the year now, maybe when I go and look, and there's not much more left of my year. I don't think I have any teams that are going to the playoffs that I'm going to be shooting for. Hey, by the way, did you notice that all the teams that you mentioned are in the hunt?
I did. I didn't mention the other one in the hunt.
You mentioned the Packers, the Giants are in the hunt, the
Vikings are in the hunt.
Vikings are in the hunt.
Seattle locks up a playoff this week if some things happen.
Yeah, Seattle. Remember Seattle was out of it, and all of a sudden they got hot.
And coming from Seattle, it was crazy because I was up there and I'm like, they're out of it. And all my friends who are season ticket holders are like, are you crazy? Do you not remember 2014? I'm like,
we came back.
I'm like, no, I don't remember 2014.
It's all a blur. It's all a blur.
All right, so we're talking about this. Oh, so Matt Ternisky said the photo sequence should be like building a glorious guitar solo. Get something snazzy to capture the attention, then build up steadily to a rocking finish. Squiddly willy wee. Oh, so he's probably thinking
making his guitar, yeah.
Because squiddly, that's the international guitar symbol right there.
I think you see that a lot when you look at portfolios. And one of the things, more than the start to finish, I like to think about the movement through the portfolio. And I learned this from John Paul Caponegro, who was looking at some work of mine. And JP said, this is great, but you are building this, and the speed is getting so fast, I don't have a break. I can't rest. He's like, so you've got to build this kind of up and down movement through your portfolio. So you're giving me different looks, different feelings, different pieces. And the other thing he says is if you get to the end, he goes, if we're doing a portfolio review, maybe we have 10, 15 minutes. He goes, I might only get through 6 images. So if your best images is the end, I may never even see it. And for me, as somebody hanging in a gallery, if my last image, it might be at the end of the hallway. So I've got to think about story and how I want people to see the images, not just as a crescending build.
That's very interesting you say that, because I've heard it said many times, you got to start strong and finish strong. But I've watched people look at other people's portfolios. Sometimes when we're doing portfolio reviews, you'll see somebody in line, or I've seen people just showing it around. And it's amazing how many times I'll see somebody like turn a few pages and then they're done.
Yeah.
And they're like, I got it. I see what you do. I see what your work is. They don't go through to the end. They don't get to the end. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and so you got to think about that piece. And I think one of the things, and when I looked at your portfolios you had online, there's a sequence to those that, intentional or not intentional, you've got in there that moves with a rhythm.
Okay, now I did have some help with some of my sequencing.
Which is great. Actually, I start my own sequencing, and then the next thing I do is I go find people who I trust to be like, okay, look at this.
Yeah, do you know Stella Kramer?
I don't.
Okay, Stella Kramer is a photo editor from New York City. She worked for like Newsweek and Sports Illustrated. You know Dave Black?
Yes.
Black? Well, she was Dave Black's editor at one time at Newsweek. Well, she's not a photographer. She's a photo editor, but she's really good. She does portfolio consulting, and she was the first person that introduced me to sequencing, and she did some of my sequencing. So if my sequencing looks good, I have to tip of the hat to Stella.
I try not to let photographers
really
edit my work. I like to get photo editors. I like to get curators because they see different.
They do see different.
And they're like, well, you can't put those two together because that doesn't make any sense for those two to be together. This is, and all they do is consume photos.
Yeah.
They're photo consumers, so they have a completely different.
They do. What a refreshing viewpoint they have.
Oh yeah. And they see things where you're not allowed to have a sin with a photo editor.
All right.
They tell
so
you pretty quick.
We got a couple more questions, and I want to ask you some questions.
Okay, so Bruno Miguel Santos says, do you work on the photos right away, or do you take your time to choose the best of the best? So this would be shoot, edit immediately, stand back.
For me, I shoot and I do a little bit of editing right away, just to kind of see what a little contrast boost does, some of those basic kind of editing pieces, and then I like to step away. And even a project I'm passionate about, even if I can give myself just a few days, a few weeks, is great. If it's a commercial shoot, something like that with a hard deadline, that's where I always like to work with a photo editor. I always like to have somebody else in the room that I have to trust relationship so we can bounce ideas off each other and talk and collaborate, because that has to happen in the moment. They need that right away. But I want to be able to say, well, I don't think that photograph works, and I think this works, and if we're going to put these two together, let's put them together this way and have that dialogue. So that happens in real time, but it's not always right away. Because I remember stuff, and
You Streamers 12 says, you can put a portfolio together by yourself, right?
Yeah. I always do, but I always have it reviewed by somebody else. My wife's a writer. Things I write, I have her read first. Book editors have book writers, authors. They have editors.
No, they don't. I write my stuff and they go straight to press.
No, air free.
Print.
Print. No, I've got 2 editors that are awesome. And my stuff would not be what it was if those editors didn't look at it. I mean, they're not only look at it, they massage it. When I say stupid stuff, they make it sound smart. But I couldn't do that process without an editor.
Yeah, and that's one of the things a portfolio review is designed for, is for you to get feedback about how to improve your shooting, how to improve your sequencing, where to potentially take the work. Because that's another thing everybody thinks about is, I've got this portfolio and what do I do with it now? Well, if you go take that to somebody, one of the questions you should ask in a portfolio review is, okay, if you're not the right person to review the work, who is, and can you introduce me to them? And then you start to build your network of who to talk to about the work.
Some more questions coming in. Would you have more than one portfolio if you take very diverse subjects? So let's say that you are a wildlife photographer and an automobile photographer. You wouldn't put them in one portfolio, would you?
I would not. Yeah. And
2 separate categories.
2 separate categories, 2 completely bodies of work. They have to be sequenced together. They tell different stories. So absolutely. And you see that everybody kind of gravitates towards that on their websites even. I have places, I have cars, models. So you don't try to pull all that together. Leave that for your retrospective, for your photo editor to pull together at the end of your life, and then they have to sort through all of that.
Johan Stoop, before we take a break here, says, Johan Stoop 31, what if you use your portfolio to show your work, some of your best photos? How many photos should be in your portfolio?
So this is probably the question I get asked the most. In general, people's attention span sits for really good photography somewhere between about 10 and 20, mid-20s, somewhere in there. Anything longer than that, they get exhausted.
You're right.
And so...
I go 4 past that.
Yeah, and for me, I usually tell my students somewhere between 10 and 15. And then that just comes from when I was in college. I had a professor who said we couldn't turn a paper in longer than 3 pages or we started to plagiarize, was his theory. So be tight, edit tight, be consistent, and give me less so that I want more. He's like, in the portfolio, if I'm done with your 10, 12 images and I think I really want to see more, you just won the game in the photography world, because you've now got a buyer or an editor on the line wanting to see more.
And
of
that's
your
a
work.
lot like how you, like, we do some stuff and we're working on stuff and we're working on a class, and it's just like, like, you got to leave them, like, it goes back to music. You got to leave them wanting more. That was amazing. Where do I see that? Well, you want more. Well, that's a fan. You're not holding back. It's just, you're setting a pace. You're setting a rhythm. You're setting something.
Yeah.
I think this is good.
We got great questions coming in, but we got to take a break.
All right, let's do a break. When we come back, we're going to answer more of your questions with Daniel. Now, Daniel Gregory, if you're in the chat, if you have questions on that, make sure that you put the questions inside of the chat. We are watching all of this stuff there. I also posted a link to the class. I'm just going to do a zoom here so you guys can see it. This would be the direct link to the class. So it's KelbyOne.com, course, D. Gregory, visual literacy. So I put that in the link. Yeah. If you go inside of the chat, you can just hot link right to that if you want to see more of that stuff right on KelbyOne.
Also, one more thing. If you're giving us comments, most of the comments are coming in are called Ustreamer 655, Ustreamer 553. If you want, it would help us out if you just put your name first, Bob, then your question.
Oh, good.
So that way you don't have to sign up for an account and all that kind of stuff, but at least we know who we're talking to. You don't have to put your full name, Bob, Cindy, whatever. Just throw a name in there and then dash and then ask us your question. So we're not Ustreaming 553.
Right.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be digging further into the portfolio topic. I'm still reeling from the number of photos he said. And you know why I'm upset about the number of photos you said?
Why?
Because I know you're right. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Create your own space at squarespace.com.
Well, hey everybody, I'm Pete Collins, and just in time for the holidays, I've got a brand new class for you, using Illustrator to create great holiday elements for your own Christmas cards. That way you can personalize them and send them off to your friends and family. Now, even if you haven't used Illustrator a lot before, I'm going to take you through each one of these things step by step and show you some neat tips and tricks along the way to really make your holiday card stand out and be a personal hit for all your friends and family.
Hanging off a cliff or dangling out of a helicopter, Kevin Gilbert always got the shot. And when the assignment is to capture an extreme reality TV show, things can get scary. The inspirational interview that takes you inside the shows of the Discovery Channel is only on KelbyOne.
No, me.
Oh, you.
No, me.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh, sorry.
Me.
Hey, I didn't know what RC was saying. This happens a lot on the commercials.
Welcome back, everybody. RC here on the grid. Scott Kelby with Daniel Gregory, knocking it out. KelbyOne instructor, author of the Visual Literacy. So just in full disclosure, right? So Daniel came down, just kind of hang out, end of the year, just do my counseling session. I figured I'd bring him in. But one of the other reasons that we started talking about portfolio and sequencing and things like that is sequencing. I'm kind of freaked out about it because you've already done it, so you've been on the other side of it, but we're doing an inspirational interview series with Mia McCormick with me.
Yeah, you'll do great.
So I'm freaked out. Like, I'm like,
Why are you freaked out?
I don't know. I teach all the time. I'm totally happy with teaching.
Also,
totally happy with
Mia is
touching.
the best in the world. She's like the Barbara Walters of these kind of interviews.
And it's one of those things where I was just like, yeah, I tell people all the time. And she's like, well, now I'm going to interview you on being inspirational. And I'm like,
oh, it's going to go great. Don't even.
But a process of that.
Don't bring in anything. Just go. Don't think about stuff. Don't think about your answers. Go and just be you. It'll be fine.
All right. Well, I'm freaked out. I'm nervous.
Don't be freaked
I don't
out.
get nervous often. I'm a little nervous. But what was happening with that is they said you have to submit some of your images. Right? You have to talk about some images that are inspirational and then doing all this stuff. So I put together all of these images.
All right, wait, are these your images?
Yes.
Let me see something real quick. I want to see.
No, it's not
Okay,
there.
I wanted to see if I had to remove one. Okay, this story is not about RC. But one day, a bunch of us had to go into somebody's office, lock the door, and make them take an image out of their portfolio. It was a portfolio intervention. It wasn't RC, but I was just looking at his images to make sure that that other photographer's image didn't wind up in his story.
It was just like one of those, like, it was the equivalent of,
We're not coming out
having
till you take it
newspaper, grab the newspaper, and they're like, no.
We stood in front of the door,
Bad RC.
we locked it, and we said we're not leaving until it comes out.
So that was one of those things. But
it wasn't our
You know
seat.
which picture? This is yet to be released, and this is going to be in it. This is one of my unreleased shots.
I love Waffle House.
But
you
like-
know how long it's been since I've been to Waffle House? Stormtrooper in Waffle House.
So it's part of an unreleased series that I'm working on. I haven't shown it, and this is probably the first time that I'm just showing it. But that's part of something that I'm working on. But
Is it called Awkward Places for Stormtroopers to have dinner?
It's kind of, and I saw somebody do this recently. I've been working on this for 2 years, and then I saw a link to somebody where they were doing stormtroopers like in normal things. I've been working on this project for like 3 years, trying to find the right situations and the right things. And then I saw an article. This one guy's been doing it in Spain, and he has like 35 images that are awesome. And I'm like,
I want to see. I want to see a stormtrooper in a barber chair with his helmet on.
Nice.
that'd be good.
And
See?
the barber's
I just-
like working out. Do you know a barber shop where they can do
I
that
do.
too?
Yeah,
We know a
I'm gonna add.
barber shop.
But you know what? I was ticked about it. But anyway, I don't want to talk about other stuff.
because they have their helmet on.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm
Interesting.
saying. You got to see that article. It was really good. That guy did a brilliant job. But so now I just got to call down that work. So now I got to take all these images and I got to call, and all of them have like some sort of emotional connection to me and things
How many
like that.
of this series? How many are this like? Do you?
They
have?
want 20. And now this is not my portfolio. I just threw everything out. I was
Right.
just like, here's images,
Okay.
and then we're just going to cull it down. So I have them.
Yeah, so you're going to tell them how many you made me look at last night after you culled them down? I remember the number, by the way.
Okay,
It has 3 numbers in it. He sends me,
Oh,
he goes,
it was
I've
that
culled it down. So can you take a look and kind of see what you think? And there was 172.
this
So
one
the
says
portfolio
173,
last night
so I
started
added-
at 172, and you've added one. Good job.
It went the wrong way. We got questions. Can I ask you some questions, Daniel?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Ustreamer 655. How do you get to even show a portfolio? What steps does someone take these days to actually have that opportunity? And when should you do that? Before having an editor to look at it or after? And where does someone find a professional photo editor in Tampa? Stella Kramer is a wonderful lady, but she is in New York City and costs a lot. Okay, Stella Kramer is wonderful. Stella Kramer is in New York City, but I did all of my sessions with Stella via Skype. I did the entire thing via Skype. I would send her my website, look at the images. She would come back and she would talk to me. And she was expensive. But when you think about things that you do that help your career, right? I could buy a lens. I couldn't even buy a lens. Stella was a better deal than a lens.
Oh, yeah.
What would help your career more? Having one of the best look at your portfolio and really help you out, or buying another lens? So I think sometimes you have to invest in yourself and not in gear. So so the fact that she's in New York City shouldn't stop anybody in the world. The fact that she's expensive is, if you want good stuff, sometimes you have to pay for it.
And one of the things is, I went to the every year in Palm Springs, they have a Palm Springs Photo Festival. Critiquers from commercial to fine art to editorial are all down there, and then they have speakers come in. So Mary Ellen Mark was there right before she passed away. Dan Winters was there. Just an amazing group of photographers. And I paid $50 for a session, and I think I bought 10 sessions. And I met with 10 different galleries and 10 different magazines. And to the question about when did I take it down there, I have a complete body of work that I went and I showed a certain set of reviewers. I had another body of work I'd started working on, and I'm in the state of, in my own world, of like, something's not quite right here. I'm doing the work, it's some new street photography, but it's tinker somewhere between traditional street photography and street environmental portraiture, but I'm not sure what's going on there. So I took that portfolio and I met with 4 people and I said, here's where I'm at. I have this body of work. There's about 12 images in here, and I just want to have you look at it and tell me what you see in the work. I need some help to move this body of work forward. So it wasn't a review to get a job. It wasn't a review to figure out the work. It was knowing that I was stuck and needed help. And I just did it at Palm Springs at the conference. I know up at in New York for the Photo Plus. That
Photoshop World does the exact same thing.
Yeah. Photoshop World has reviews. So to go in there and just have somebody objectively look at your work, I think is great. Even if you have to just get another photographer or find a photo school or somebody who can look at the work, but don't ever worry about it being complete unless you're at that state. Just be honest to the reviewer. Hey, Scott, can you look at my work? I'm just getting started in shooting models, and this is where I'm trying to figure out some technical things. Well, that lets you know as a reviewer, well, let me give you technical feedback on how to improve. Oh, and by the way, here's some other things for you to think about. That way you get what you want from the review, because what happens to a lot of people is they go in there and they just sit there and expect something magic to happen. But you got to have a plan going in of what you want. Right. If you want a job, you've got to sit down and say, I would like to work for, a lifestyle photography for Real Simple magazine. I'm going to meet with the editor-in-chief of that magazine, or the photo editor of that magazine. You don't just walk in and put the portfolio down and...
Right.
Now, the portfolio has to be great. It has to be put in the right order and all that.
Can I tell you something? That's freaking great advice right there. That is really, really good advice. Brad did that at Photo Plus last year.
Most certainly did.
He knew what he wanted to do, and he went and paid that thing and got in front of incredible photo editors, all photo editors. And I think it really helped him a lot. Not only did it help Brad, some of the stuff that Brad told me they told him helped me, and I'm not a concert photographer.
Yeah.
But some of the feedback that they gave him, I realized they're right. I took it, and we try to do that on the grid when we do our blind critiques. And that's a point we try to make to people, is that when we do blind critiques, we're only going to get to 15 photographers. When we do it, you're supposed to be able to look at somebody else's work and go, oh my God, I do the same thing. Oh, I never thought about that. Oh, that's right, that's happening to me. You have to be able to get to a point where you can hear one piece of advice. Like you're saying things and you're talking about RC, and this is, I'm taking little nuggets from it going, oh gosh, that's right. Oh, that's great. I should do that. I think that we have to a lot of people can only learn in the context of what they're doing. If you're a flower photographer, you can only learn when someone has a picture of a flower on the screen. That's not how it is.
Yeah.
You have to keep your mind open to all these things.
And the editing sequencing piece, when I teach that, it's usually in groups. And what everybody tells me is, it was not my portfolio that you reviewed that helped me. It was listening to you do the 11 other ones.
Yeah, right.
Because they were like, because one of the things is I explain is this is why we're going to sequence and put things in order, and this is why this works. And they were like, oh, it never occurred to me that even matters. Or I never thought about putting my own work together in that order. So it is that fringe of just being present when that's going on that's so important.
I want to actually get to some sequencing, but we got so many great questions. Can we rip through these? We're going to have to give real quick answers, and we're just going to go bang and go through them. Ustreamer553, do you view your website and portfolio differently?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my portfolios are never on my website.
Your printed portfolios?
My printed portfolios, because and the reason for that is I am, as a fine art photographer, I'm interested in gallery work. And the gallery is interested in having work that's not out there. And so I am very protective of my portfolio work. And I will tease up here's an image I'm working on. This is a body of work I'm working on. But my portfolio is very protected of me. And it's always a print.
Okay.
There you go.
Very cool.
Stephanie, can we, before we go on, Stephanie, I got your Christmas card. Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you. Yeah, I got a Christmas card.
Stephanie sent me a Christmas card. Anyway, thank you very much, Stephanie. Stephanie here. How often do you refresh your portfolio?
For me, once a project's complete, that portfolio locks and it doesn't get refreshed because I move on to the next thing. For my
work, do you have a recent work column like?
I do have a recent.
Oh, that's right. You don't have a website. You do the.
Well, I do have a website, but on my website I have up work,
but it's not your.
But it's not my recent work. It's work that I find interesting in my own work.
Oh, okay.
Kind of illustrates this is kind of my way of seeing my
selfies.
My nude selfies, yes.
Right, okay.
That's what I'm using Instagram for.
Oh yeah.
No.
Great. This will be easy.
Yeah. Voice, vision, style kind of elements I think about for my website. So it's not, and I do have them categorized up there. And occasionally I'll pull one out of the website, put it in the portfolio to see like, oh, does that work better or not? But for the most part, my website is just to kind of showcase the things I'm interested in photographing and the way I kind of see the world.
Very good. All right, Matt. Oh, no, Carlos. What your photos should be what size? Now, I'm assuming that you're thinking printed.
Printed. So for me, that I have a little box of prints. They're in the 11 by 14 range. But what I always do is, and I print big. I love to print big. So
yeah.
I always try to take to the portfolio reviews one image that's the size I expect the work to be displayed in. So instead of hauling 40 images that are 24 by 30, I take one and say, this is how I'm going to print, this is what it looks like. And the reason I do that is I want to also showcase my skills as a printer, and that these are the images, they're going to print this big, because I want the person who's going to ultimately bet on me as the artist to have the confidence I'm going to deliver those prints that size.
Right.
And so that's the piece for that. So
very good. You take a box?
I take a box.
Okay.
Yep, I take a box. Now my wet plates are 4 by 5. They're 4 inches by 5 inches. So but they're in a little box that's about that size. So it always goes in the box. And my name is on it, because if it ever gets left behind or gets lost, I always want to make sure it gets returned, because everybody has the same looking box at the portfolio reviews.
There you go. Matt Charninsky. Honestly, I think some of your best content has been produced when you're outside of your comfort zone, like that lesson where you were talking about not feeling inspired.
Yeah.
I think that was
in the visual literacy class, we talk about that. And absolutely, getting out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone, because when you're in the rut, you don't move forward. And it's the same in the editing and sequencing. In that process, once it feels comfortable, something's not right.
Yeah, and actually just to pull it aside back to just what I'm talking about, like that's the part that's got me freaked out. Like ever since we did that conversation where I'm just like, my work sucks. I don't feel very inspired. Like I'm not looking at stuff. It was just, that's been ever since that conversation, like, it's just been a complete undoing of me, artistically. And that's what I'm afraid of about for tomorrow. But I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be fine. I think me as a pro, but it's one of those things
the thing about your portfolio, and we talked a little about the thing about your portfolio from the past is that's where you were in the past. Those were the things you were working on. And it doesn't discredit them that you're evolving and changing now. It's still good work. But it's not work you're necessarily connected to, but it's still a part of who you are as the artist.
And that was the one thing that you told me yesterday that kind of made like the whole thing kind of feel better about it. And I wanted to kind of address a couple of different things here, because I think that people don't understand this kind of stuff. Like when Daniel talks to me about this kind of stuff, like I'm talking to him about my frustrations, and I'm like, I don't like this. I think my work is trite. Like I don't like this, and I'm negative about this, and this sucks, and I want to do this. And he's like, well, you should feel that way, because that's a good symbol of you feeling like you're evolving, because now you're wanting to look at something differently. It's not that it sucks, it's that you want to see something differently. And I was like, yes, that actually helps, and that feels, and what happens is a lot of you guys, when you're watching the show, you don't see that there are these conversations that happen. Like when Scott takes his stuff, you have people that you send your work to. You have people that you talk to about that stuff.
Yeah.
So they see the result of it and they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. But it's amazing because you've had a relationship with your work enough to be able to go, it has to go to somebody else. Like, I know you've talked to Joe, you've talked to Moose, you've talked to Stella,
Black.
you've talked to Dave
Well,
Black.
you know what else too? I think what you're experiencing is the thing that I experienced, and I think a lot of photographers experience. If you were taking as good a pictures as you thought you could take, you'd be thrilled.
Yeah.
But I think that you think, and I think, and I know I think, like, I think I have better pictures inside me than I'm getting. And I think, I don't feel like this is as good as I can do. I feel like, man, I know there are better pictures inside me. I just need to get them out.
That's a really good way to say that.
I think it's one of the things that we try to do on one part of it. Like on one part of it, and I'm not trying to plug KelbyOne, but it is something we try to do because people have the tools. That's why we call it fuel for creativity. That's why that's our slogan, because people have the tools. We're trying to give you the inspiration through interviews like yours, through classes like yours. We're trying to give you the how to use the tools and all that, because I think that most of us know that inside we can do better. Like that's why I think if you talk to somebody who's disappointed with their work, it's not because they think they're doing their best work yet.
Yeah.
They think my best work is still yet to come. And I think that about my work. I don't think like I'm rocking it. I think like crap. I look at my images and I'm so sick of it. We were talking about this. I'm so tired of them, just like God. And then if you feel that way and you're like frustrated and stuff, it means because you know there's better work inside you.
Right.
And you're trying to build that bridge between where you are now and what's inside you. Because if you thought I'm rocking it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any better than you are. You're going to produce more of what you've done.
Yeah,
Well, I don't want to
Carl-
produce more than what I've done. I want to produce better stuff.
Yeah, Carl Cios, I'm assuming Carl Colorado just said, when you're completely satisfied, you stop learning.
Yeah,
absolutely.
When you think you're awesome, you're like, and so that's why a lot of times RC and myself and other photographers we talk to, they're hard on themselves and they're not happy with what they're doing. Now, I may be happy on a particular thing I'm working on, but then very shortly thereafter, I'm very unhappy because I realized I got here. And can I tell you something? It is wherever you are, when you get to that next level, and I used to tell this story on my last tour, not on this one. I said, let's say that your dream is to get a gallery showing. And you go and you convince a gallery in your town to have a gallery showing. And it's 2 weeks from Friday. Well, 2 weeks from Friday to come, you go into the gallery and the place is packed and you invited everybody. There's wine, there's cheese, your images on the wall. You are so happy. And then the gallery showing ends. Not just the opening, but 2 weeks later, whatever, the gallery showing ends. Do you go, that's it, I've reached my goal? Nope, you set another goal. So I went to a gallery in my town. Now I want to go to Atlanta. Then I want to go, and if you go to Atlanta and you have a showing, then you want to go to the biggest gallery in Atlanta. When you rock that, you go, damn, I've never had one in New York. This is exactly how it goes. And that's how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Because when you reach one step of the ladder, you don't want to go, well, that's all I've ever wanted was a gallery showing. There was a time in your life where that's exactly what your sentence would be. You know what I want out of my photography? Here's another one. I talk to photographers all the time. What do you want out of your photography? I would love to make enough money to pay for my gear.
Yeah.
Until you pay for your gear. Wait till all your gear is paid for. You don't go, that's it. Now you go, you know what I'd really like to make? $40,000 out of it a year. If I could make $40,000, you'll just go to another, then I could quit my job, I could work part-time. You will just keep adding another rung because that's who we are. Because we're not at the end of our creative, I don't know what we call it,
journey.
Creative road or journey. Thank you. Journey is the right word. You're still on it, and hopefully you'll be on it your whole life. It's what pushes. Like, do you think freaking Joe McNally, needs to climb to the top of the Burj Al Arab? He's done freaking everything, but he has to risk his life. Do you know why?
Got to get the photo.
Because he's pushing it. Yeah. He's trying to go to that next level. Joe's got an amazing stuff, but he knows, but if I could get to the top of the Burj Al Arab, then I could do blank. It's not about money. It's not he thinks if I go to the top of the Burj, I'll get money. This is the thing that drives us as photographers, is there's better stuff. Our better stuff is still ahead of us. That's why we look at our old stuff and go, because we know even today, like I feel like on some level, and this is going to sound, what do you call it? When you say one thing and it means another. I feel like my best football photography is ahead of me, but I haven't taken a shot this year. Like I feel like I'm a better football photographer this year than last year, but I have nothing to prove it. Yeah, bad analogy. Let's pretend I never said that.
There's a great, amazing photographer, Stephen Shore. And Stephen's first show in his entire life was at the MoMA in New York at 20 or 21. And he talks about how
Paris.
Well, he talks about how he went into a depression because he realized that the pinnacle of your career was at 20. And he says it took him a while to get back into the swing where he could actually create. And he is one of the, iconic fine art photographers, influential photographers of color in photographic history. But he talks about that whatever your goal is, when you achieve it, there is this weird kind of letdown, and then you've got to work through that and get going forward, no matter what it is, whether it's the MoMA, whatever. You've got to keep.
And he probably
creating.
wanted to go to Paris to the Sorbonne and have his images shown in a cooking school. Sorry, it just sounded good. All right, we got more questions, but you know what I really want to do? Can we? Because we're starting to get questions that are very specific about sequencing. That was what I want to make sure that we don't end this class because we're way into it and go, hey, we never really talked about. We talked about how important sequencing is, but let's get on to sequencing.
Yeah, so we talked about, and we'll take one more break. Can we take a break?
We love taking
Can we take one more break?
We love to take breaks.
So we'll take one more break, but then what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll just to recap. First thing, one of the best things that you can do is make sure that you split work that's dedicated to a focused body of work. The second thing that you want to do is you want to be able to shoot, back up, and give it some time to be able to marinate.
Yeah.
Third thing is you want to make sure that you're shooting a large body of work so that you have more to be able to cut down from. Biggest mistake that people have is having a short portfolio that then cuts down to mediocre pictures. Yeah. Have I got that part so far?
You have.
Okay, now let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, what we'll do is we'll actually just show a little bit of a sequence And that way you guys kind of have a start for this. But before I let you go, this is what, and I have to say this one last time, this is where we're going on KelbyOne. This is the reason you want to become a member. These are the conversations that you need to know are happening in photography so that you could become better as a photographer.
Hey, and I'm talking to Stella about doing a class.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. That's why you want to do it. That's why you want to do it. Anyway, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about sequencing process when you come back.
Sequencing and mixing like a DJ.
When it comes to flying drones, finding updated instruction that isn't filled with a bunch of technical industry jargon is tough. If you're looking for simple, easy-to-follow lessons on setup and calibration, flight modes and camera techniques for your DJI Phantom 3, you can find it right here on KelbyOne.com. I'm Mia McCormick. Together with John McQuiston, we'll cover exactly what you need to know to fly safely and capture amazing footage in our latest class on the DJI Phantom 3. So if you're ready to fly, start with us on KelbyOne.
Hi, I'm Daniel Gregory, a fine art photographer from Seattle, Washington. Join me in my new class where we really kind of leave behind the more technical aspects of photography like f-stops and shutter speed and start to focus on really the introspective side of photography and creating work that matters to you. So join me as I sit down with Mia McCormick, RC Concepcion, where we really look and break down what is the intention and meaning behind your work. I'm Daniel Gregory. Come check out my class on visual literacy and speaking about your work at KelbyOne.
All right, we're back. Wow, this is so interesting. So he was going through some images here and on my portfolio.
Welcome back, everybody. The Grid, RC, Scott Kelby, Daniel Gregory. Let's get to it.
All right.
So let's talk about the concept of pacing.
Yeah. So
how to be able to set this up.
Yeah. So one of the things when you get your images, photographs stand alone as great images, but then when they sit next to another photograph, like I said earlier, it can change our relationship to elevate or de-escalate the value of the photograph. But it also tells a story as they relate to one another. And so one photograph, as it moves to the next photograph, we can use the same compositional elements and concepts of color and gesture to help photographs work together. And as we're sequencing, what we're attempting to do is try to get that full body of work to allow us to experience either a story or an understanding or have a fluidity to move through it. And we don't want it to be repetitious because the human brain, as soon as it can figure out the pattern, it gets bored and goes to sleep and it'll tune out the rest of the photographs. So we want the experience of looking at the photographs to push us forward, to pull us back, to move us left, to move us right, to give us pause. And we do that by learning to place photographs next to one another. And you've got two when I looked through your football portfolio, there were two here that really stood out to me as a great example of how one image to the next can only relate. So can we bring your screen up?
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, so this was a shot of Aaron Rodgers. That's really great. And then let's go forward to the Peyton Manning one. So this is image 1 to image 2 in the portfolio. Visually, what's going on in these photographs is we have some tension created between the Aaron Rodgers and the Peyton Manning from the fact that Aaron is moving from left to right and Peyton's arm is pushing to the right side of the frame. So those footballs are starting to butt into one another. So it's creating some tension between the two images. So even though they're completely separate objects, they start to relate to one another. You
would see this on a 2-page spread. Like if you were doing a portfolio, it would be very, very obvious.
Absolutely. And then we think about Peyton Manning at the twilight of his career and the athleticism of Aaron Rodgers. So those stories start to relate. So somebody who's into football will start to pick that up as the contrast between those. So sequencing those is important. If we took the Peyton Manning photograph and put it first,
right?
Now all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers is going off to the right, and we've lost the dynamic tension between those two photographs.
Yeah.
Because now Aaron's pushing me into the next photograph, but it's not Peyton, so I don't have the same tension created between the photographs. So that sequence is really important.
So if this was, what would be next? Let's see what next would be. That would be the, oh, poor Kaepernick. That would be the next shot.
And so this creates a different sense of tension because it's center framed. We don't have the movement from Peyton to help push this photograph. So this photograph creates a certain stillness. So that's one of the things we call a rest image. I'm moving through, I've got action, which your portfolio does a pretty good job. I've got hard-hitting action. Then there's a moment where it's quiet moment with a player, even if it's on the field, it's just the player in isolation like this one. And then something like this one is high energy, high physicality. So now I'm picking back up energy. So your portfolio is moving me to quiet,
Well,
stillness.
you can't even see the ball. It's cropped off. Well, it's in the image. You see the
It's
ball
just
in
the
the catcher.
browser,
It's the
yeah.
browser thing. I got to fix that. Hey, you know what? A guy sent me some CSS code last night to fix this.
Yeah?
Yeah, a guy sent me I went to my site and saw this and said, "Hey, I use Squarespace too, and here's some CSS code so it moves your picture down."
Nice.
Because he said, here's what he said. You're basically, he said, if this tucks down into your navigation, nobody cares because you see navigation, but it's cutting off on the top of your photos.
So in
And
this
then
world,
it should have rest. Maybe there's rest.
there's rest. Even though it's energy, the smoke's behind them.
Hey, I need a higher res image there. It looks a little soft.
So to your great point though about the 2-page spread, one of the things I recommend everybody does when they get to the portfolio level, and you're at the point where you're starting to call, you're down to the 50, 60, you're trying to get down to your 10 to 15 or whatever you have. Even if you're not a printer and it's only going to be online, pay the 29 cents to Walgreens and have them make you prints. Put them out on the table, because now you can start to see what they look like as they move around the table. Because the other thing
That's a good tip.
Because the other thing that happens is when it's on the computer, and even if you're in Lightroom and you're using or you're in Bridge, what's always there is tools to fix and edit. And you're not processing images at this point, you're sequencing the portfolio at this point. So we want to remove that distraction of, if I just tweak that, if I just fix that. No. Move around. Because the other thing that also tells us is, maybe I do need to crop that photograph a little bit, but now that's on the to-do list to do later, and I can keep focused on the task, which is the editing.
That's a
and
really good
sequencing.
thing.
Yeah.
I could see printing out 20, like printing out 20.
Yeah.
What would it cost you? $5?
$4 or $5.
$4 or $5. You'd have all 20 of your portfolio images.
And then you can just sit there and
Walgreens
just
prints
kinda-
them a little green, Costco prints them a little yellow, but you're not judging print quality. These are literally to put in order.
Hey, dude, if I'm spending 29 cents, I want some. I want
Match.
some freaking. I want
Match
to be
print.
a dead match.
So, but that's the pieces. You're not worried about quality. What you're worried about is content of the image and how the images interplay with one another.
Nice. That's good.
Let me see. What's
Rest.
that.
Action.
Action. I don't know. That's kind of rusty. You know what it is? This one's good. It cropped out the cameraman on the other side. Resty.
See, and this one, if you go back, what's kind of interesting about
Whoa.
the
Hey, he's in there twice.
high res.
And that's high res. I got a problem in my portfolio. I got what's this doodle in there twice? That's Drew Brees.
My first piece of advice to you would be
Not have
just
it-
have the photo in there once. I've already seen Drew Brees. Just give it to me once. This is go back to that one, the Cam Newton. So this is.
He's having a hell of a year, isn't he?
He is an amazing year.
Did you know that I read a stat about him yesterday? He's not just having a heck of a year as a quarterback, as a running. Yes, I know I took it. Wait, it's Cam Newton. He's on the screen. He's having he's like the quarterback that's going to break all, but he just has. If he gets 2 more rushing touchdowns, he's broken the all-time record for quarterbacks. But he's like number 2 in the NFL for rushing.
Wow.
For rushing touchdowns of running backs.
Right?
Sorry.
So
This is what happens when a guy that knows football gets on the show and RC's next to us.
So this one is what I like about
just-
this image and the next one in the sequencing is this energy is pushing the frame to the left,
Yeah.
but the action's going to the right. So the tension's going to the left, the action's going to the right. He's looking to the right. You go to the next frame.
It's okay.
Yeah, because all that edge tension's now on the edge. So you gave me some space. Visually, you gave me space for the field as if the play was unfolding. And so it's kind of an interesting sequence from a football standpoint of creating the dynamic tension that would occur as the field expands.
I have to lose this picture, don't I?
That one you definitely have to lose.
I know. It's just. You
And-
know,
and-
can I
and-
tell you why? You know why I like this? It's nothing to do with the picture, and this is stupid. I'm going to tell you why. You know how I got this picture? Can we look at the high res? Because I can't take a look at the freaking low res. I have this picture because I'm seeing something in it nobody else is seeing. So, no. So we are at the. This is the game where Drew Brees broke the passing record.
Okay.
I'm shooting with the Falcons, so I'm with the Falcons team, and the Falcons team says, we can't, even though we have green all access vests, we can't walk out on the field. Well, I see some guy who's just in a beige vest, which is like, beige vest, you're nobody. You're a gnat on a gnat's butt. Anyway, you have a beige vest, and he's like kind of halfway out there on the field. So I run out there real quick with him. I go, hey man, did you get permission to be out here? She's like, no. I go, me either. Why don't we go out in the line where their team's coming out? Because we'll set up right by the video guys, because nobody ever messes with the video guys are like, they're gold on the sideline. So we went out there and shot, and here comes Drew Brees straight. I'm in the middle of the field. I have no reason to be there. I have no permission to be there. We got the shot. Every time I look at this, I go, yeah, that was the day he broke the record. We weren't supposed to be out there. But everybody else looks at it and goes, this is a stupid guy running out.
Yeah.
What the hell's wrong with me?
Well, because that's what I was talking about with memory. You remember all that.
I remember. I got to get this out of there. I'm pulling it out. When the show's over, boom, it's gone.
Yeah, because if I actually ask you, what's that a photograph of?
That's Drew Brees, man.
Running out on the field.
Running out on the field.
And if I showed you that as my photograph and I didn't tell you any of the story, you'd be like, dude,
that's Drew Brees running out on the field. I know, you're exactly right. As we're looking at it here, I thought, why is that? The picture I took this week that got the photo is better than that. That's coming out. Okay, everybody take a last look at this. Take a last look at it.
He's leaving.
Because right after this show is over, about 15 seconds later, this and the low-res version will both be gone.
All right, so we're...
I'm not going to replace it or anything, because now you're making me call it down.
Call it down.
I'm calling it.
So we've got now some examples on how to be able to set yourself up, how to be able to organize yourself, and we could have this conversation for hours.
Wait. I need something gritty. All right, where do I start? Let's talk sequencing. I got my 14 images. I've printed them out.
Okay.
They're all there. Where do I begin?
You've got, on the table, you've got
20,
50, 60.
Oh, you say like put a whole bunch of them out.
Put them out there, yeah.
Okay.
And then what I like to do is find an image that is the elevated image for me. As I'm looking around, like, wow, that image really moves me some way. I'm connected to something in the image, and I start with that one. And then I start putting photographs next to it and start to think about, what story do I want to tell? Because ultimately, as photographers, we're storytellers. Whether it's in one image, whether it's in multiple images, we want to tell a story. And as people, we're storytelling creatures.
Yeah.
So I start to think about, what story do I want to tell? What emotions do I want to invoke? How do I want that to work? And I start to build that narrative. And I think, does that image help? If I put that image next to it, I'm like, well, that's an interesting story. That's starting to relate to another. The horizon line moves top to bottom. Oh, the gesture in that one and the gesture in that one kind of mirror each other. I was just helping a woman with a sequencing editing from her book from Paris. She had 2 coffee cups on a table, a black and a white cup, and then the next photo is a black and a white dog getting walked. I was like, oh, that's actually 2 couples in Paris. And 2 different ways of representing that story. Like, well, once those 2 photos set next to one another, they had to move through the whole book together, because they were partners. They became so much more together. And so that's what I start to look for initially, is I find one, and then I start to look what partners together.
He's good. This guy's good.
And then as we build the sequence, now the worst part of all of this is the narrative takes hold more than the photographs do. So then I have to be willing to take my absolute favorite photograph and say it actually doesn't fit in my story. And it has to come out. Now, the way I reconcile that in my own sadness is, it has a different story to tell. It's a part of a different narrative. So just because it doesn't fit in this body of work doesn't mean it fits in a different body of work. And so it gets to go and live and do something else. And oftentimes for me, that becomes another form of inspiration, because I'm like, wow, if I take that photograph, this is how I want that narrative to feel. Now I know what to shoot around. And that gives me inspiration to go forward. The last thing I'll say about that is, I had a photograph in a gallery show, working with a group of people, or you're curating, and I kept sticking this one photograph back in. And the person who was at photo editor, she kept pulling it back out. And we would resequence the work, and I'd stick it back in. And finally I told her, I said, it's my show, I'm putting it on the wall, the photograph goes in. And she looked at me, she goes, wow, you finally became an artist. I go, what do you mean? She's like, you decided to own your work. She says, I'm pushing you because I want you to own the work. She said, there's nothing wrong with the photograph. It fits, but I want you to decide it fits. I want you to own it. And I've never forgotten that there's a difference between, and if you know it's a bad photograph, you're like, okay, it actually does need to go. But if it's not, and it really means something to you, you got to fight for it.
Now, that photograph that you kept sneaking in there, was it of a Buddhist garden? No? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I thought I liked it.
Hey, you think it's bad? I got 2 pictures of Drew Brees, and one of them's fuzzy.
Oh, well, that same photo editor, I had this beautiful photograph on the table. She looks at it and she says, "Wow, this is a beautiful photograph." She's like, "It's Ansel Adams-esque." And she's like, "Do you have a bathroom at your house?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Great, go pin it on the wall right next to the toilet, so you can look at it every time you're in the bathroom." And I said, "Why would you say that?" And she said, "It's a great photograph. It should be looked at every day. It's not your photograph. It doesn't speak to your sensibility and who you are as an artist. You mimicked Ansel Adams. So put it on the wall where you put Ansel Adams photos somewhere in your house and look at it. But it's not your artwork."
But Daniel, why the bathroom?
She said, "Because you're in the bathroom every day, so you get to see it every day." And I was like, "That's true. The artwork you want to see every day."
I don't know why. When you say put your photo in the bathroom, I don't care. It doesn't sound like a compliment. Pete, thoughts?
It's a throne room.
Yeah.
It's the throne room.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a place to dump.
All right, so I love where this is going.
And we could do this for, but we have to.
We're out of
fun.
time. We're out of time.
This has been fun.
We had good questions too and stuff. We have some good questions. Jock's Photos got a good question. I'm going to answer this. We'll answer this one last one, then we got to go. What's the best way to mix verticals and sequence? Mixed vertical.
Mix horizontal and verticals.
That question on screen. How to best mix verticals in a sequence of horizontals?
So one of the things is it's how many verticals. Because what happens is if I'm looking at 6 horizontals and then a vertical and 6 horizontals, my thought is, what's up with the vertical? If there's 2 or 3 in there and they're strong photographs and they speak to the narrative of the experience, they become images that kind of pop me up and make me pay more attention to the portfolio. 1, I wonder why it might feel kind of gimmicky. 2 to 3, as long as they're integrated into the narrative appropriately. And when I sequence, I play with that, like, well, what if they're together? What if they're apart? What if they're bookends? And so it's hard to exactly answer.
Like you stuck one in there, it kind of.
One just you're like, why is that?
Why is that in there?
Why is that way?
Well, there you go, Jock's Photos.
Nice. All right. So anyway, thank you, Daniel, for coming by. We
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah.
This has been good.
Awesome.
A
I
lot
could
of
listen
fun.
to you speak about anything.
Now, we have to wrap this up. There's a couple of different housekeeping things that we want to
And
talk
giveaways.
about. And giveaways, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to you about 2 new classes that we have in KelbyOne. We did 2 Christmas classes, holiday classes that we wanted you to have.
Oh, these are pretty cute.
Yeah, so I did a class on just kind of trying to make your own Christmas card using your skill at Photoshop, and I partnered with Corey to get all of that stuff up and running. So I did a shoot with Mia in a park with her kid, and then we just flashed all over the different portions of the park.
Oh, come on, it's
Her
better
child.
than that.
It was really cool. Like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. But it was one of those things where it's like, you're a photographer, you're a Photoshop person, go make something cool, right? So we made a portrait of Max and Mia at the playground, and we turned it into a class so that you guys can have that as well. I like where Pete went with his illustrated holiday cards. So if you're a creative person, why not use your skill in Illustrator? Why not use your skill in these products and actually create your own cards? That shows a little bit more of you. These are 2 classes that we have there. We also have an inspirational interview with Kevin Gilbert. We have a new class from Corey Barker on what's new in Photoshop CC 2015. We have Kaylee Greer's inspirational interview. There is a bunch of stuff for you guys to be able to see. So we do have that. Now, for the giveaways, we have Scott Kelby's digital photography book series, right? So this is a culled collection of all of the stuff that
It's
he has
culled.
from the digital photography
No, I
book series.
handpicked my favorite stuff.
I think
that's
it's
in there.
awesome, and a wonderful book from one of my mentors, or one of my icons, one of the people that I like, Jay Maisel. It's not about the F-stop. So you guys are going to be able to win one
If you
of
know
them.
Jay, it should have been called It's Not About the F Word.
It's not about...
He does throw that word around like you and I throw the or and or
So
anything else.
to do that, what I want you to do is I want you to go to kelbytv.com/contest. Inside of there, put in your show, put in the name, the email, the website, and leave a comment. Tell us which one of these you would like to win, and 2 of you will win one of each. Did you already do it?
I already took it out. I could not wait. I just deleted both of the Drew Brees photos. They're already gone. They're so gone.
And done. Well,
Done. Boom.
you did it where you use Squarespace.
Squarespace. Yeah, I use Squarespace, and it's so easy. You just basically go in there, and you can see. You can look at my screen if you want to see it here real quick. Just go to the screen right there, and You know, there it is. Just erase what you,
You just
want.
grab,
Click,
it is a
click
super-
on it,
super easy
and
to
hit
use.
the
They do
garbage
make it.
can, and
they
you're
make it
done. Yeah,
incredibly
there you go.
easy for you to work
They
with
do
stuff. So
a great job.
Boom.
now I've done this. Thank you so much, Daniel, again, once again, for all of that stuff. If you want to see more of Daniel, where could they go to see more of your stuff?
So my website's www.danieljgregory.com.
Okay.
And on there, the thing I kind of focus on is I do a little podcast where I try to keep it short to about 10 minutes every week.
So do we. 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Which is just talks about just random different parts of photography. And then I try to do interviews with photographers, mostly not super well-known photographers, but who are really working through a creative life and these kind of struggles, to just talk to them about how everyday people deal with these kind of things. And so
Nice.
that's up on the site as well.
And if you want to see Daniel Gregory's class that he has on KelbyOne on visual literacy, you can go to bit.ly. I just
People
did this for you.
freaking love this class.
Yeah, it was good. It was really
People
good. You guys did a great job at this
love
class.
this class.
So bit.ly/Daniel Gregory. Make sure you get the caps in there. That will give you more information. Scott, where can people find you?
Well, you know, I do a daily blog. Nobody reads it. ScottKelby.com. And let's see what else. You know, I'm on Twitter.
Instagram.
I'm on Instagram.
Instagram. And so what is it? Scott Kelby? At Scott Kelby?
Yeah, it's at Scott Kelby on
Okay.
Instagram.
You're on Instagram as well?
Yeah, but I don't remember my name.
Okay.
Something.
I told you I needed a class.
All right. And then if you want to follow
got
me
one for you.
on my website, aboutrc.com, everything, Twitter, Facebook, all of that kind of stuff, all of that
Look
stuff
at
is
it.
About RC.
RC is showing his Instagram page. I'm proud of you.
I'm trying. Little
All
by
right,
little.
but we got to work on your strategy.
We'll work
Your
on it.
strategy can't be pictures of me camping.
I enjoy
You know who
camping.
gets away with pictures of me camping?
Paul Bunyan.
Like Justin Timberlake.
Paul Bunyan.
If you show Justin Timberlake shows me camping, 1 million people want to see.
I went camping with, no.
You didn't go camping with Justin Timberlake.
Thank you so much, guys, for stopping by. This is the last show of 2016. Have a wonderful new
This
year.
is it. The last show.
That's it. Have a happy
Yes,
holiday.
It's the last show.
Happy
Wait a
holidays.
minute. Can it really be the last show? Like it's only like the.
Yeah.
16th of
Wait a
December.
minute. Today's
Yes.
the 16th, and we're not doing another show.
On the 23rd?
Well, no, I'm not 23rd. What about the next week?
That's the 30th.
30th.
Yeah.
This is the last show of the year.
So
yeah.
thank you so much, guys, for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful new year.
Thanks to Daniel for a great, very informative guest. You were great. You were awesome.
Cool. Thanks for inviting me.
And we'll see all of you guys in 2016. Happy
Yay.
holidays, everybody. We'll see you guys
Happy
soon.
holidays.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I'm wearing a coat today.